Ladies and gentlemen, and this is the controversial missing children milk carton program by channel Wendigoon. Yes, this is new Wendigoon video. It popped on my notification feed, and holy shit, it's trending number second. All right, I still haven't finished the the horror movie, whatever that thing was, right? Iceberg right? Yeah, I don't know if I want to or not, but I guess I'll see. Maybe I'll finish it later, but I'm definitely doing this one right now. Because I'm pretty sure those last tiers are going to be way too fucked up. I don't even know if YouTube's going to be fine. I mean, obviously his video already exists, so I guess YouTube won't be an issue. I don't know. But yeah, let's go this one. Controversial missing children. I don't get what's so controversial about that. I mean, they used to put... they don't do that anymore, right? I mean, they used to do that. I'm pretty sure they don't do it anymore. But they used to put, missing children on Carton. It has become such a famous thing that people use that in movies and jokes and shit, right? Like, if there is a missing person joke, they show it on milk carton because it became so famous. But I didn't know it was a controversial. Is he talking about that people didn't like that or something? Like the first thing in the morning, they wake up and they take their milk to put it in their coffee or something. Just see a kid is missing. Somehow it's depressing or something. It's just kid is just missing, so it can't be depressing. I mean, it's not a tragedy news. It's just like, kid is missing. Maybe it'll be found. So I don't know if that is controversial or not, but yeah. I'm pretty sure there's more to it. Otherwise, this video wouldn't exist. So I didn't know there was controversy around it, but okay. I just thought that they used to do that, and there's some, for whatever reason, they just stopped. All right, let's do it.
Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about the story and controversies of the Missing Children Milk Carton program. Even if you've never heard of this program, you're probably familiar with its objective, which was putting the photographs of missing children on milk cartons across the United States. The program, which began in the 1980s, was meant to raise public awareness about the epidemic of missing children and more broadly the concept of stranger danger. While the program's effects have been very widespread, and there's at least a couple success stories from the program, including a very bizarre instance that we're going to talk about today, many remember the milk carton kids for the eventual controversy and downfall that the program would acquire. And if you've ever seen a picture from a movie or TV show that shows a missing kid on the side of a milk carton and wonder, why don't they do that anymore?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about exactly why they don't do that anymore. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around as we talk about the problems, cases, and history of the Missing Children Milk Carton program, which will almost undoubtedly be useless information to everyone watching, but it will also be depressing for whatever that's worth. But before I fill your brain with more useless...
Okay, so did Wendigoon used to trend before? Because is this internet historian effect? He appeared on internet historian video and people are like, oh, who is Wendigoon? Let's check it out his video. And people realize, holy shit, he makes really good video, and there you go, trending. Is that what's happening?
Knowledge. Let's talk about something that's neither useless nor depressing, like today's sponsor, Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon is the low-carb, keto-friendly breakfast that's gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free as well. But not only that, Magic Spoon also has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs, and only 140 calories per serving. And if you hear all that and think, what's the big deal? Then you clearly haven't tried Magic Spoon, or seen my previous ads, because you'll know that the most magical thing about this cereal is that it tastes amazing too. As a matter of fact, last time we talked, I was on a hunt
that it has 14 grams of protein.
Magic Spoon's hidden power. And since then, I have gone on a hunt for Magic Spoon itself, and around me you can see my participants in today's ad. And while it's true that those you see around you have been mercilessly hunted by yours truly, if you think about it, that's really Magic Spoon, the company's, fault. See, they send me about a dozen cereal boxes a month to do these ads, but if they think that a dozen was enough to satisfy me, then they clearly haven't tried their own breakfast, because once I start, I can't stop. So Magic Spoon forced my hand, and I had to begin sourcing my supply from the local wildlife. But I can assure you that everything you see before you now has been ethically sourced, and is really the cereal's fault for being so delicious. So if you're like me and want to get in on this fantastic breakfast option without committing the sins that I will one day tell God about, then you can do that by going to the link in the description at magicspoon.com/Wendigoon.
Those animals didn't even know it's coming.
Spoon order for $5 off. That is right. You can get $5 off your order at the link in the description. If you're looking for some recommendations, some of my favorite are the chocolate chip cookie, the s'mores, the cinnamon roll, and the fruity, although you really can't go wrong with any pick. Again, that's magicspoon.com/Wendigoon to get in on this deal today. Thank you all so much for watching the ad. Thank you so much to those who witnessed these crimes and didn't alert the authorities. And thank you so much to Magic Spoon for sponsoring the video. It really does mean the most. Hope you all check them out. Link is in the description. And I made the tower of cereal, and if I don't knock it over, people will be mad, so.
Nah, man, people will be fine. That's all you. You wanted to knock it over.
And we are back to the video. We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. Also, before we get started, check this out. My buddy Bryant made the Wendigoon logo into a real thing, like with the night vision mount and the deer's skull. It's like Wendigoon, but
Cooler.
real. He's so cool. I'm going to make sure he stays somewhere on this wall for the foreseeable future. So thank you, Bryant. Now, to understand how the Missing Children Milk Carton program came to be, we need to take a look back at the first instance of someone putting a kid's face on a milk carton. And to do that, we need to understand how the whole milk carton thing worked. In the 1960s, paper milk cartons became the main form of milk distribution in order to replace the more expensive glass bottles. Since these paper milk cartons were cheap and pretty quickly produced with a wide audience, it became common for companies near local dairies to advertise on the side of milk cartons. So by the 1980s, it was very common to expect some kind of messaging or advertisement on the side of the milk carton you buy at the grocery store. Now, strangely, there's a lot of debate online as to which child was the first to show up on a milk carton, but I think I found the correct timeline of events. In Des Moines, Iowa, on September the 5th, 1982, a paperboy by the name of Johnny Gosh went missing. Johnny was 12 years old at the time, and every morning, Johnny and his father would ride around the neighborhood as Johnny rode on his bike and his father followed him, as Johnny would throw newspapers to all the houses on the street. The night before Johnny went missing, he told his father that he felt he was old enough to do the paper run on his own. His father said no and told Johnny to wake him up before he does the morning route. But it seems that the next morning, again September the 5th, Johnny didn't wake his father and instead took his bicycle and red wagon full of newspapers around the block by himself. People around the neighborhood began to call the paper company, saying that their paper hadn't come that morning, and after Johnny's father went looking for him, he found his son's red wagon and bicycle tipped over 2 blocks away from their house.
Damn.
During the investigation, a neighbor had said talking to someone in a truck while Johnny was still on his bicycle. But according to that witness, it just seemed he was asking the guy for directions and the two parted ways. Beyond that, no clues as to Johnny's disappearance were ever discovered. This disappearance was a big deal.
One time he says like, okay, don't come with me, I want to go on my own, and this shit happens.
And stayed in the public conscious for the next couple years, especially when a similar disappearance occurred in 1984. On August the 12th of 1984,
So what, he was never found? Is that what the thing is? Holy shit.
a month shy of being 2 years exactly from Johnny's disappearance, another paper boy, this one Eugene Martin, also went missing in Des Moines, Iowa. Eugene's case was very similar to Johnny's. Eugene was 13 years old and had gone out to do the paper route that morning and was never seen again. A witness came forward and said that, very similar to Johnny's case, Eugene was spotted talking to an unknown man at around 5:45 in the morning. This was the only information the public had to go on, and given the similarities between Eugene and Johnny's case, many of the locals believed that the two disappearances were linked. However, what happened immediately following Eugene's disappearance that didn't happen following Johnny's disappearance would change the concept of missing children in the United States forever.
What?
Eugene Martin had a relative who worked at the local Anderson and Erickson dairy. Again, the disappearance of Johnny and Eugene was a huge deal in Des Moines, and Eugene's relative felt that if people knew what the kids looked like, then they'd have a better chance of finding them. So Eugene's relative approached his boss at the Anderson and Erickson dairy and said, what if, instead of running the normal ads that we run every week, we instead put pictures of Johnny and Eugene on the side of our milk cartons? The owner of the dairy thought this was a great idea, and in September of 1984, for the first time, photos of missing children with the word missing rolled out in grocery stores across the city. And from there, the concept spread really fast. A couple months later, in November of 1984, Walter Woodbury of the much larger Hawthorne Melody Dairy in Whitewater, Wisconsin, was visiting Des Moines, Iowa on a business trip. While in Des Moines, he saw one of the Anderson and Erickson milk cartons that had the faces of two missing kids printed on the side of it and thought it was an incredible idea. The Hawthorne Melody Dairy was so big that part of its distribution range was Chicago, Illinois. So, Woodbury goes to the police chief of the Chicago Police Department, tells him about his idea to put missing kids on milk cartons, and the Chicago police also thought that it was a great idea. It begins to spread to newspapers around the country that Chicago is going to begin showcasing missing children on milk cartons to raise public awareness. A month later...
It's the matter of exposure, right? I mean, exposure as in... Like, if you have a paper, you put missing children's ad there, you know which page that is on. Now, if you're one of those people who don't want to know anything, just want to see specific news, you're going to skip a lot of pages. So there is a chance you won't see the ad or the face of missing, people. But when it comes to milk, it's just one carton in your hand. No way in hell you can't see the missing children photo there. And everybody wants milk, man. Whether it's coffee or whatever you're drinking, you need milk. So everybody's going to buy milk. And if the photo is just there, you will see it whether you want to or not. So the exposure is much higher that way. So of course people are like, oh, this is a good idea.
In December of 1984, Stephen Glazier, the future senator of California, sees this in the paper and thinks it would be a great idea for the entire state of California. So a statewide campaign is launched in California, and nearly every large dairy in the state begins putting missing children on the side of milk cartons. So seeing this as a way to raise awareness for missing kids, the newly formed National Child Safety Council creates a new program that will be nationwide and use a database of missing children to be printed on milk cartons across the country. And this program was called the Missing Children Milk Carton Program, founded in December of 1984. The first child featured on a milk carton at a national level was Eden Patz. Now, Eden's disappearance predates that of Johnny and Eugene's. However, Eden's case became much more high profile. On May the 25th of 1979, a 6-year-old Eden Patz went missing from his neighborhood in Lower Manhattan. Normally, Eden's dad would walk him down the short stretch of sidewalk in front of their house to get to the corner of the street where Eden's school bus would stop every morning. This morning of May the 25th, Eden was excited because it was the first time he got to walk to the school bus alone. However, after leaving his front door to take the short walk of a few dozen feet to the bus stop at the corner of his street, Eden was never seen again. Whenever Eden didn't show up for school that day, the teacher just assumed he was sick and didn't think to call it in to the principal or his parents. It wasn't until that evening when Eden didn't come home from school that the parents decided to call the school, only to figure out that he had never been there, and then call the police. Despite over 100 police officers, a team of bloodhounds, and nearly the entire neighborhood searching for him, Eden was never found. The case was so high profile that Ronald Reagan made May the 25th National Missing Children's Day. And despite the Missing Children Milk Carton Program beginning...
But seriously, the first two, in the first case, the father always went with the kid, 12-year-old kid, for the paper route, right? One morning, even the father said, I'm going to come, and he just went by his own because he thought he can do this, right? That one time he disappears, and I am guessing he was never found because he didn't say he was found or not. Same thing with the other kid, same situation, paper route. Now in this case, a kid who's just 6-year-old just walked a few feet from his house just to bus stop, and he disappears. That whenever you hear of disappearance, you think like, okay, they basically traveled somewhere or just went a bit distance from their house, even in their own town or city. They went somewhere and disappeared, not just few feet from your house or something like that, or riding around your neighborhood delivering paper. That's just heavy, man. So around this time, the disappearing thing was kind of a strong. Is that it? People just basically took kids or something, because it had to be, if the foundation was just the newer thing, Missing Children, whatever organization is also new. So that just tells me that around this time, the abduction was much higher than before, because the foundation is new. These kids gets missing and milk carton thing becomes new. It is all happening relatively around the same time.
5 years after Eden's disappearance, Eden Patz was seen as such a widely known case and a case that people wanted to see resolved in some sense that they decided his would be the first face to show around the country. There's a lot of confusion and conflicting reports online as to which face was the first to appear on a milk carton. Some say it was Johnny's, some say it was Eugene's, and some say it was Eden's. But as I just explained, all three are technically correct. Johnny and Eugene appeared simultaneously as the first kids on a milk carton, and Eden was the first one to appear nationally on a milk carton. By March of 1985, the program was widely adopted, with 700 out of 1,800 dairies in the country being a part of the initiative. And according to the National Child Safety Council, in April of 1985, sightings of missing children had increased by 30%. However, sightings of missing children are very different from children no longer missing.
Yeah,
and if you're hearing all of this and asking yourself,
yeah, so sighting of missing children. Like, what the fuck? Somebody saw missing children. What happened? So they went missing again? Sightings should mean that, okay, somebody found missing children, just alerted the authority, and the kid is no longer missing or something.
How effective was the Missing Children Milk Carton program? Then, well, now it should also be mentioned that the faces of missing kids weren't exclusive to milk cartons. There were also cases of the faces appearing on envelopes, trucks, billboards, grocery bags, pizza boxes, and even utility bills. So the question, whenever you have all of these different avenues for people to see children's faces,
seriously,
is, are they actually working? And it seems that the end result is we don't know. Of course, there was the odd circumstance where a child was found and a witness would say that they saw the kid's face on a pizza box or milk carton, but those were few and far between. Even by the most generous estimates, like the National Child Safety Council saying that sightings of children increased by 30%, which is again from the people who are hosting the program. A 30% increase in sightings doesn't mean a lot unless there's a...
Now let me talk about a bit of psychology, right? Sightings could rise simply because somebody watched a kid's photo on a carton, milk carton, then saw a kid and just assumed that's the same kid, even though there might not be much of similarities there. Power of suggestion. That could be one of the anomalies there. So sighting went up just because they saw the photos on the milk carton and other envelopes and things like that, right? Power of suggestion is really strong. If you tell certain people, like if you find 100 people around certain area, like somewhere woods or something, you know, not around city or town, and just tell them, oh, I've seen aliens and alien UFOs here. At least few of them will come back saying, I saw something too. Otherwise, they won't have. Power of suggestion, basically. So that could amount for 30% rise, basically.
Relatable number of children recovered. Some of the only numbers we have for how the program performed, at least relating to milk cartons, are from the days whenever the program was just starting to take off. Like, for example, a report by the LA Times in 1985, whenever California was one of the first states to adopt the program. In the first few months of the program in LA, the LA Times said that out of the 14 children who were shown on a milk carton, 7 of them have been returned home. And while you may hear that and think, oh, well, 50%, that's pretty good, hold on. That's assuming that all 7 of these children were returned home because of the effect of the milk carton, when it turns out only 1 of them was, and even then it's just kind of. All 7 of these children were not abducted, rather they were runaways. And in each case, it seems that it was an older child, 14 to 17 years old, who decided to run out and party with friends for a week or two, and then came back home. And during that time they were gone, the parents called the police filed them as a missing child, so their face wound up on a milk carton when they were really just out on a bender. The 1 out of the 7 kids who were equated to the milk carton program said that they were gone for a few days and saw their face on the news and their face on a milk carton and decided to come back home. But even then, from everything I read, it seemed that the kid was just out partying for a week. They didn't move out. But the news just simply said 50% success rate, and that made more people decide to get on board the program. And it seems that across the country, numbers were fudged in a very similar manner. One of the statistics I kept hearing from politicians.
Look, to that, here's what I say. Obviously, we can never know if the carton image on a carton thing would ever work, right? You can never exactly know if that was the reason why people found something. Maybe it's barely working, right? Or maybe it's just working enough, but that's never going to be the main reason, right? It's just making awareness high, making certain people know there's those photos, making certain people know, oh, these children are missing, and maybe somehow that helped push people to find these kids or whatever, or anything. I can't think of all the scenarios, but maybe it's just working just enough, but we can never know that. We can never directly say that this ads basically help finding kids. We can never say that. But it's the same thing like those avoid tobacco and those ads. Do telling people not do drugs and this and that is going to matter who people are doing drugs or not? Maybe not. Are you going to stop say that? Maybe it's going to help someone, right? Like maybe because of this missing carton thing, if there are abductors who are abducting kids, maybe they'll be scared to do that. Maybe one of the kids were never picked up, never got abducted to begin with, because people got afraid, like, okay, they're putting photos on the milk carton now. We can never know that. That's the thing. But okay, so I guess obviously the controversy is still going to come if they stop doing it. Controversy is not just going to be, okay, it's not working, let's just stop, right? That's not how awareness work, right? People are not just going to be like, oh, this awareness is not working. No, I mean,
politicians and law enforcement around this time was the 2 million number, saying every year 2 million children go missing, which is an insane estimate by anyone's standards. But the narrative, even if it was never officially stated around this entire culture of the 80s, and especially the stranger danger epidemic, which is something that's a bit out of the scope of this video, was that all 2 million of these missing kids were abducted and swept off the streets by these no-good, low-down strangers who roll into town, steal a few kids, then roll out. And it began to contribute to this air of fear in the public that you couldn't let your child out in public, even if you were with them, because there was always a shady van around the corner ready to sweep up kids. And I'm sure that several of you watching either lived through or had parents who lived through the era of anti-stranger PSAs, or these videos that would teach children to never get in a car unless they had a password that your parent would have told them at some point, and to never talk to weird people at the grocery store, and all kinds of stuff like that. And while that's not bad in itself, of course, everyone and their children should be prepared for bad people, it was an insane mischaracterization of the statistic. For one, the 2 million number seems completely bloated. By most estimates I've seen, the 1.8 to 2 million figure is people throughout the year who told the police, maybe, that their child was kidnapped, and less than half of those turn out to be legitimate. It's just parents who lost their kid in the grocery store for like 2 minutes. And according to a Department of Justice survey from around this time, out of all of the reported kidnappings, they could confirm 800,000 as abductions that police looked into. And you may hear them think, 800,000, that's still a wild number. Well, out of that 800,000, the Department of Justice said that 115 of those were stereotypical abductions. And by stereotypical abduction, I mean a scenario in which a stranger transported a child and kept them overnight. So 115 out of 800,000, not a lot. Of course, it's still a tragedy and still 115 too many, but compared to the population of the United States, that is a very small number. The vast majority of missing children's cases are either children running away.
Yeah, 115,000. I mean, that's not still a small number, obviously, but yeah, compared to at the time, what was the population? 200, 300 is right now, right? So 200, 300 million. Among them, how many of them kids? Compared to that, it's not that big of a number, but still big. But the thing is, I can see how it could, increase the hysteria. Like, holy shit, let's just protect the kids, not even let them out. And I think that it had a wider effect, right? Today we have these helicopter parents, right? Who doesn't let their kids do anything. They're always like helicoptering over them, basically. I guess this kind of birthed that as well. So it has a much longer effect to it. And any kind of a situation like this bound to have some exaggerated effect, right? If something is small, it will feel like big. That's how usually this kind of things goes. So it kind of makes sense.
Or divorce disputes, or specifically cases during a divorce where one parent is given custody for an allotted time and the other parent either takes the child away for some time or picks up the kid when they're not supposed to, and it causes a spat where one party calls the police. The issue was, all of these cases, even cases of children running away for a day or two then coming back home, were getting lumped in as missing children. And the issue with that is that it went on to define an entire era of child rearing. There was an entire generation of kids who had their neighborhood shut down Halloween for fear of all of the random unmarked vans that they feared were ready to pick up their children. And there were schools who would shut down sporting activities and not allow the children to play outside for fear of all of the strangers who could be lurking in the bushes. So, rather comically, there would be a lot of scenarios where a family would buy a milk carton that had a missing kid on it, and then the parent would set down the kids and be like, all right, now to make sure you don't wind up like Billy here, make sure you do XYZ. When it turns out Billy just went and stayed at a friend's house for a few days before coming back, and now the parents telling their kids about human trafficking rings. That led to another aspect.
Oh God, imagine that. Small kids just thinking the neighborhood is fine, safe. They want to just go to their school, want to visit their friend's house, right? Imagine that Stranger Things season 1 type of thing, right? Old, whatever, 70s, 80s kids who just want to bicycle to their, friend's house and this and that. And morning comes, see that right there? Look at the face. That kid just, somebody kidnapped that kid. That could happen to you. So outside is dangerous. Imagine the kid's mentality. Like, holy shit, I don't wanna, let go of my parents' hand at that point whenever I go outside, and can't even go outside on my own. That kind of a fear kind of stays with you, right? Especially when you're a kid. If you're a kid and you grow up with that kind of mentality, that kind of fucks up with the psyche, man.
Of the milk carton program that quickly fell out of public favor. And that was the fact that if any family bought milk, which was most families in the United States, the missing child was now a centerpiece at their morning breakfast. And this effect was twofold. For the adults who saw a different child's face every time they went to the supermarket, they became desensitized to the kids they were seeing and stopped thinking about the intent of the program, which was to look for this specific child. Whereas the children who were sitting next to a child their age every morning with the words, "Have you seen me?" or missing across it, became more and more terrified. Pediatricians Benjamin Spock and T. Barry Brazelton were very open critics of the milk carton program because they said they had seen several children who developed this acute sense of paranoia after seeing so many faces of kids their age on these missing person cartons.
Alright, look, I want to say this. There is similarity of this that I can think of today's world, and it was a Bill Burr joke that he said that on Conan. It wasn't a joke, he was talking about it on Conan. Like, he was talking about how in NFL, there are these ads of, cancer awareness and things like that. And he was just, obviously he's awkward sometimes when he try to explain it, can't explain it properly, so there is confusion there. And he just paused, and people are just, what you trying to say? And then Conan just starts to laugh. Like, are you saying they shouldn't do cancer awareness? Is that what you're saying? And Bill Burr is like, no, I'm not against that, but I'm just saying that this is my, cool down time. Like, chill out. I just want to see sport. I don't want to see world's trouble all the time. I don't want to see, like, I'm sitting here, okay, I'm tired of seeing world's problem the entire day. This is my end of the day. I just want to chill right now. And then you show, like, avalanche that, going over people, different tragedies, tsunamis. I don't want to do that. I don't want to see that. I just want to watch sport. So there is this argument, like, there is a time and a place. Certain things should be just to calm you down. Right? If there is a thing like NFL or something that you watch just to calm down and get away from all world's trouble, and you see things like this is similar to that. In the morning, you are sitting on breakfast, you're talking to your kids, your wife and your family, basically, just trying to chill before you go out in the real world, drinking milk, and just see that, holy shit, kids are getting abducted. I can see where this is coming from, right? And that Bill Burr Conan thing is just perfect for this. This is kind of similar to that. Like if you just put awareness everywhere, every part of your life, your psyche is going to be fucked, right? You can't be just aware of world problems 24/7. That's what internet is doing to people as well. This is why depression and everything is up to rise right now. There is a time and place. You can't be just tuned into the world's problem 24/7. Then you're fucked. You'll develop depression or something.
And again, this would be fine if the milk carton program was saving children. I think we can all agree that the life of a child is more important than the comfort of another child.
Yeah.
But as mentioned, it was debated if the milk carton program was doing any good at all, other than scaring kids and just vaguely raising the idea of stranger danger. A lot of the language and practices I see around this time seem like an overcorrection for me. In the 50s and 60s, children just kind of went missing, and either from runaways or just going off with strangers, and people just kind of let it slip. So in the 80s, there was this massive course correction where any statistic that had to do with a kid not being at home at night was added on to scare all the other children into never talking to anyone ever. What also
Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's how our societies work. One time nobody cares and the crime is up to rise and nobody realizes it. Somebody realized the crime is happening, they overcorrect it by doing hysteria and just blowing up out of proportion, and everybody's afraid now. There is never a middle ground. That's the problem with our society. So yeah, I mean, if the program had worked, I mean, it's understandable, that using this kind of a statistic. I mean, so what if you're not comfortable? Program is fucking working. Of course, it's most of the things like he said, and I was about to say in the start of the video, but I'm like, okay, let's see what he's saying. But missing children, most time even the cops would say that it's usually one of the parents, if the parents are split, right? If there is a divorce and parents are split, usually it's one of the parents who took the kids because of the disagreement or whatever. It's not really kidnapping per se. So, but yeah, we can never know if this milk carton program actually really worked or not. But the point here is it didn't work at the efficiency that would justify all this. That would justify all this hysteria. So yeah, there's still half a video left. I'll do that next time. I'm like 32-minute point right now. So yeah, if you like my reaction, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.